Chapter 1. A few miles from Lisbon, March 1811.
"So, where have you sent my husband this time?"
asked Lucy, as she pinched out the candle on the trunk that served as a bedside table in my tent. "Oh, I had to send him to headquarters to see if he could get more boot soles. The men's boots are already in a sorry state."
"Yes, but he is being sent on so many errands lately. He thinks his new captain does not like him."
She giggled and snuggled even closer to me on the narrow cot bed. "I like Corporal Benton well enough. It is just that I like his wife even more." I put my arm around her and pulled her tight towards me. Apart from the obvious carnal pleasures of being with Lucy, which we'd just enjoyed, the shared body warmth on a cold night like this was useful too.
"Will he be back tomorrow?"
asked Lucy, before yawning loudly. "Yes, I suppose so," I replied gloomily. It was not the done thing for officers to enjoy the soldiers' wives, but Lucy had been giving me licentious looks since I was first appointed as captain of a husband's company. Benton was a good corporal, if a little too earnest. While Lucy loved him in her own way, he had evidently not been doing enough to please her under the blankets. As soon as I looked over the camp followers of my company, she had caught my eye. There were just 6 official wives on the strength, drawn in a lottery to accompany the regiment when it left England. But since then, most of the remaining men had acquired Spanish or Portuguese women. Lucia da Silva was now Lucy Benton, and if they were not officially married in the eyes of the army, they were in the eyes of the men, which was why the philandering captain of Benton's company had to be discreet.
"Do you think we will fight the French soon?"
murmured Lucy into the crook of my shoulder. "I don't know. We've not seen a Frenchman yet, and no one knows what state their army will be in when we do catch up with them." It was just the 6th day of a new campaign which was expected to turn around our fortunes in Spain and Portugal. While we had spent a winter in good quarters behind the lines of the Torres Vedras forts, starvation and disease had finally forced the French to withdraw. Now the British were advancing again. Aside from Corporal Benton moaning about his various errands, the rest of the men were in high spirits. As with the start of any campaign, there was the usual wild optimism of being in Madrid by the summer. Looking back on that time, I thank God we cannot see into the future, for many of those who laughed and joked about the coming victories would be dead in a few weeks, and those of us who survived often had cause to wish we hadn't. As Lucy snored quietly into my neck, I reflected on recent events. The French had initially thought that they had the British army trapped and besieged when they drove it towards Lisbon the previous autumn. But as a bitterly cruel winter had set in, they slowly realized that the positions had been reversed. First, they discovered that the British had built an impregnable line of forts along the Torres Vedras hills. Behind these fortifications we had lived in comfort, either in the forts or in the houses of Lisbon, and were well supplied with food by ship. Our besiegers soon found themselves cut off from other French armies when the harsh weather blocked the mountain passes, and then the cold, disease, and pitiless partisans had steadily taken their toll. Wellington had expected the French to pull back after 6 weeks, but they had scavenged and searched for food to stay for 6 months. Deserters who managed to reach the British lines had told tales of whole companies wiped out by a combination of starvation and pneumonia, while their accounts of silently murdered sentries and missing patrols showed that partisans and the local population were exacting a gruesome revenge for the brutal methods used by the French to find hidden food. Many of the British officers had been pressing Wellington to advance against the weakened French for weeks, but he had been content to wait. "Let General Winter do his work, gentlemen," he had repeatedly intoned, and it had been one of the harshest winters that anyone could remember. His reluctance may also have had something to do with the fact that he was being entertained by one of the finest courtesans in Lisbon. I know, because I introduced him, and had spent much of that winter with her sister. You would be a fool to leave either of their beds prematurely. But now that the French had pulled back, the British commander had no choice but to pursue them.
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.